been working on a book for probably about the last 6 to 7 months with a wonderful couple, great friends of mine, Eric and Kelly Olson. Um, we've been working on what is essentially a manual for parents and family members of somebody that is addicted, how to handle it, things to do, how to get them back on track and off of whatever they're addicted to. So, just a few basic things. I want to reframe the way you might think about a few things. Drug dealers being thought of as just morally bankrupt bad people. Um, a lot of drug dealers that are in prison are not what you think. They're not the people selling to little kids that are not using it, that just sell it. The majority of drug dealers are middlemen. So, what's a middleman? When you decide, I don't want to steal from my mom. I don't want to steal from my grandma. I don't want to steal from my brother, sister, dad. I want to steal their jewelry, their guitar, their PlayStation, whatever. But you are addicted. You have to get money to get high. And it bothers you that bad. It eats you up. You can't bring yourself to do it, but you've got to get this drug because you're addicted. You are already physically addicted. It's already happened. So what you will frequently see people do is what is called middlemaning. So, drugs, just like any other thing you buy, when you buy in bulk, you get a discount. Typically, when you buy, if it's individually bagged, if you buy 10, you get it at a discount. With other things like cocaine, typically is sold by the gram. If you buy what's called an 8 ball, 3.5 grams, you get a discount. Cocaine, typically the cheapest they sell out of that is a half gram, so that's like 7 units as opposed to 1/2 gram, but it's sold in one bag. With heroin, it's sold in individual bags. You won't get too much into that, but not right now anyway. But the point is this: let's say it's heroin. You want drugs, but you don't want to steal, so you go to Billy. You have a connection. Billy does not have. Billy wants 6 bags of heroin at $25 a piece, $150. Bobby wants 2 bags of heroin, $25 a piece, $50. You now have $200. When you go to your heroin dealer, they sell it at a discount for $200. This is just an as if anybody's addicted or anything, talking about the prices. In Roanoke, back when I was 15, 16, but when it wasn't as popular, I think these are the prices that it was then. Know that right before everything happened, and the last I used it was down from that by far, but this is just a for instance. So you give 6 to him, 2 to him, you're left with 2. So by collecting their money and just taking a simple trip, a simple drive, an hour of your time, you made your drugs to get high. You did not have to steal anything. Now, this is what happens a lot. I don't know a single addict that has not middleman a drug deal. I don't. Now, a lot of judges, there's one that was awful, that was terrible, in Salem that swore he'd give out 1,000,000 years before he retired. I believe he's retired now, thank God. When addicts would middleman a drug deal and end up in his courtroom, rather than give them drug court for a petty drug offense of a petty amount, he'd say, drug court is for drug addicts, not drug dealers. You will be getting time in the U.S. or in the state penitentiary. And he was an awful guy. He gave one guy that I personally knew and was friends with. Know the full name, know everything about who this guy is. This is not just a name I pulled out, but for his privacy, his name, it's unimportant. For 2 pounds of marijuana, he gave him 5 years, the maximum. I believe it was a half pound to 5 pounds was 1 to 5 years, used to be. 2 pounds. He hadn't been in trouble in 20 years. 20 years before, he'd done something. He'd been in prison, and he said to the judge, well, how can I haven't been in trouble in 20 years. He said, Mr. P, you have not been caught in 20 years. And he said, well, can't I get some sort of a program, something? He said, I've got a program for you, Mr. P, and it's called the State Penitentiary, where you will be spending the next 5 years. This is a man in his 50s who was just selling marijuana to get a few extra bucks on top of his already crappy job. And he's diabetic, just a complete health mess in his 50s, and he has to go to a state prison for 5 years. And in Virginia, you're going to do 4.5 of that. They don't have parole. Terrible, terrible. How it's looked at, and it needs to be talked about a lot with the judges, with legislation, with a lot of people. It's just, if 5 people right now sit down and try cocaine on this table right now, 5 people, one of them is going to be addicted. The other 4 can just not do it again, or do it if it shows up at a party, just not think anything of it. But one of them, something different happens inside their brain. It's an addiction of obsession and compulsion. The obsession part is thinking about it every second until you have it again. The compulsion is not only the using, but the stealing, middlemaning, whatever you do, doing things, illegal acts in order to get it. Now, that's just a brief, summary of why not all drug dealers are morally bankrupt. Drug dealers, drug middlemen, not dealers. Now, there's other definitions and terms that, you've got to reframe to really understand this thing. And when you understand it, you can deal with it more effectively. It's not something to just be met with anger. Just yelling at it isn't going to make it go away. Isn't going to make it better. Now, I'm not saying there should be serious measures taken in place to stop addiction, but many of the things like kicking people out. I know 3 men who were kicked out of their house. Didn't have anywhere to go, didn't have any money. It was like that scene from Breaking Bad where Jesse goes around asking everybody, can I crash here tonight? And he didn't have anywhere to go. And he asked his mom, where am I supposed to go? She said, I don't know. So, well, he broke into the junkyard and where his RV was at, fell through a porta potty. It's a whole different thing. But anyway, when you kick people out and just say, leave them to their own devices, when they hit bottom, then they can build themselves back up. No, well, there's different ways to help intervene than just sending somebody out to be a crash dummy and hoping the chips fall in place where they can pick themselves back up. A lot of time, leaving somebody to their own devices, somebody on drugs who's not right in the head because they're high, is going to lead to bad consequences. Somebody getting hurt, somebody going to prison, them ODing, something of that sort can happen. These 3 people I'm mentioning, the same day they were kicked out, they robbed a pharmacy. 2 of them, circumstance they didn't have too much time they had to do. The third got 17 years. 17 years. He was a kid. And, he'd barely been alive 17 years. I believe back then he was 19 when he did it, so he's got a prison sentence that's pretty much almost as long as the years he's been alive. Now, guys often do things like that are stupid, but girls, it's unfortunate because a lot of time they end up shacking up with a drug dealer, possibly selling themselves. It's a lot of stuff that I saw with that, with different girls. They just all of a sudden they're dope man's girlfriend, or worse. And, it's kicking people out. There's other things you can do. I'll talk about it, but to be honest, it may seem a little bit harsh, but getting somebody a petty jail sentence is a lot better than, them spending 10 years in a prison or dying. It doesn't always have to come to that. There's a lot of different measures in order to talk somebody into getting help. Now, if you give somebody a choice, basically, you're going to jail or you're going to get help, they're almost always going to take help. I mean, pretty much. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So it has to be that stern, though, and it's just like addiction with one person, having one person that's a friend that's an addict can sink the whole ship. It can make all your work go to piss. If I had one friend that used occasionally and they just happened to put it down on the table in front of me, I've not used in a long time, in a very long time. If you put it right down in front of me and I've had a crappy day, I can't say what I do. So guess what I do? I don't associate with a single one of those people. That is a concept that I cannot say enough. And it's something that an addict has to come to terms with is you have to leave every old friend from your past in the past. And that was what was so hard for me. Not only did I didn't want to quit, they have to want to quit. Now, with enough time off of it, you end up wanting to quit. When I first went to jail for a year before I made bond for 2 years, I thought about when I got out, I'd have no tolerance. It wouldn't cost anything to get me blasted. Just my tolerance was gone then. I'd be able to get high for cheap. How much fun it was going to be. And after 4 or 5 months, I thought about all the pain I caused, all the stuff I'd lost, how I was in jail. And then I found out I was facing a federal prison sentence in the middle of that jail stay. And I started thinking, man, is this stuff worth it? Basically, there is a point where the good times and the bad times meet. And when the bad times outweigh the good times, that's when an addict starts thinking, maybe this shit isn't working. Maybe I need to do something different. And until the bad exceeds the good. Now, there's another concept too. When you talk about hitting bottom, there's roadblocks you can put to force a bottom, force somebody to hit their rock bottom. But bottom also for an addict, for anybody that's an addict listening, bottom is when you put down the dang shovel, quit digging. It does not have to be you with a needle in your arm that used a puddle of rainwater to mix in a spoon to shoot up heroin and being arrested because you're caught like that or whatever. Or some girl, if you're a girl selling yourself and something as awful as that. It doesn't. Any day you can choose. This is it. This is my bottom. I've hit it. Time to turn something around. And there's a lot of different measures you can take. But these concepts you have to realize. Now, enabling, that's a whole other concept too. A counselor, a good friend of mine, Kevin Thompson, reframed what enabling was to me. Kevin was addicted for many years, been clean for decades now. He was a counselor, the first counselor actually that made a difference in my life, that said something that just clicked, it treated us like we were humans. Really, when it comes to a counselor talking to an addict, it comes off better if it's a counselor who is a formal addict. Being a drug addict, being a felon is actually kind of a prerequisite for a good drug counselor in many situations. I'm not saying there can't be somebody that's never used before, but it certainly helps because if some, person who's had a good life, easy road the whole way, comes along and tries to tell you how you need to change and they can't relate to you or understand anything, you're not going to want to listen to them. I've seen people rebel against counselors like that. When I was a kid and I got put in groups like that, I led revolts against counselors like that, especially ones that try to be, the too tough ones. And that doesn't work. There's too easy, there's too tough, then there's a reward punishment program that you start to learn. If I don't do drugs and I live right, I'm rewarded. Good things will happen. People divert back to like a childlike state when they get on drugs, and it basically becomes, their whole attitude of how they act. It just changes the personality. And, there's a lot of stuff that has to be undone. And there's a lot of things that people don't understand. It's something people don't like to talk about. But it needs to be talked about, not just inside of the family, but outside of the family, in the court system. The whole thing needs to be reevaluated with how it is looked at, with how it is treated. Rehabilitation just is completely a joke in federal prison. The classes that they had in there, even the RDAP program, I did the RDAP program. It was a drug program they had in there. Now, There are a number of programs that I will do videos on that just are dumb, that don't work. Um, you know, I got sent to a religious program that was basically, you're not going to talk about anything from your past life. From this day forward, you'll be punished if you talk about your past life. From today on, you're a man of God. We will pray the addiction away. Zero mental health treatment. No medications allowed. It was a terrible place. I didn't spend very long there. I got out. Felt like a cult. Then there are, programs like the one in prison where it's behavioral based. Like it's you just don't have any respect for authority, and we're going to teach you respect for authority. No, a lot of drug addicts I knew had respect for authority. They said yes sir, no sir. But once you're physically addicted and you feel like you're literally dying, I've known addicts that have gone through chemo and cancer treatment, and they said that heroin withdrawal by far was worse than when they went through chemo. I mean, that says something. If you feel like that bad, and all it takes is a $20 bag to make it go away and put you in the Bahamas, give you a vacation to a beach, your own private little vacation. As soon as you ingest the chemicals in that bag, and you could go from feeling the worst, like you're literally dying, a mental hell that I cannot explain, is it's pretty much, it exceeds the physical pain. It puts you in a mental depression too. They're chemicals. See, if you've got a baseline and your normal feel good, feel bad chemicals are just like this. Well, you ever heard what goes up must come down? Well, when you do a drug, instead of that baseline, it's going baseline, you take the drug, whoop, goes all the way up. When it wears off, when you are physically addicted, and then you don't have it anymore, and it's been a while, whoop, way down. For that little bit it went up, it went twice as low down. So that is the mental depression part of it. And in terms of people say, why can't you just quit? Okay, are you addicted to caffeine? Are you addicted to nicotine? Are you addicted to food? Are you addicted to alcohol? Just don't have cigarettes for a month starting today. If you're addicted to nicotine, no nicotine for a month. If you're addicted to caffeine, no caffeine for a month. You're going to have a terrible headache tomorrow if you do that. If it's processed sugar withdrawal has actually been compared to heroin withdrawal in a certain sense. Depression, feeling like your body hates you and everything else. And if it's, you got a favorite drink, favorite food, it's something you have every day, and somebody just takes that away from you. Of course, drug addiction is more serious, but just to make it more relatable, it's not always as easy as just quit. And it's something that really just consumes somebody, and they're in a complete mental depression unless they're on it. Now, with enough time away from it, that can go away, and it gets easier. But literally, when you first quit using it, even after the physical withdrawal, you wake up in the middle of the night, and you've had a dream that you used, and you wake up and you feel like this. I had dreams where I woke up when I was on probation, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to fail a drug test now. I felt like I woke up and I felt like I was high, even though I hadn't used it in months. And I was worried I was going to fail the drug test, and I had to tell myself, okay, it's okay, it's okay. It was a dream. Dreams that haunt you on a nightly basis for months, it does go away after a while. After a long while, it does go away. But it takes time. The hardest part is, the first, if there's a month, there's 6 months, after a year, you start to get in a routine. After a couple years, it's a whole lot easier. And the friend group, if you go to a rehab, you get back home, you're told you can't hang out with any of your old friends. Well, what are you going to do? You don't have any hobbies, you don't have anything to do. What are you going to do? You're sitting there looking at the TV, and the TV gets boring enough after so long, and you decide, screw it, I want to go use, even if just to have some social interaction. So, for me, judo, that is my new addiction. When I'm not at it, I'm studying instructionals obsessively. I love it. And the people at it are my literal only friends. Now, some of them probably think, oh yeah, he's a nice guy, I guess we're friends. And they don't realize they're one of my best friends. I don't have a whole lot of friends, and I've got a small, secluded life that I like to keep this way. It's what works for me, and you have to find a unique balance in order to make it work as an addict. Now, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu or judo. It could be whatever, art, interpretive dance. Just I don't know, whatever you like. But if you have a class that you can go to, a class that as a teacher that's a master at this, that does something that you admire, that teacher will serve as a mentor. The people in it will serve as friends because you have a common interest. The teacher will serve as kind of like a person who helps guide you, even though it has nothing to do with it relates, it works. So there's certain things that you have to put together in order to make things work. It's not just about how to stop it and dry somebody out. It's about what is life after you take the drugs away. Taking the drugs away, of course, that's a hellacious thing. It's going to be a nightmare a lot of times with somebody freaking out that you have to bite down and accept you're going to do whatever it takes to get them to intervene in this. But the life after that is the trick. What are you going to replace it with? What's life going to be like from now on? What is your new normal? Because you're not using drugs anymore. You're not hanging out with any of the same old people. Who are your new friends? What is your new life? What are you going to do? And this is something that people don't think about enough. They just say, meetings are great. Meetings help a lot of people. It's one of the few medical things recognized to treat addiction. Going to NAAA meetings. Some NA meetings are not good. When I was buying large amounts of heroin in Baltimore, in some rehabs, there's some things like this that need to be talked about. When I got sent to a rehab and I didn't want to be in rehab, and it's in Pennsylvania, there was a heroin addict from Baltimore. Well, his cousin was the man. This came up in conversation. He told me he could get raw heroin for $70 a gram. Well, I came up with a deal with him. I said, well, all right, I'll give you so much. Extra on top of that, you can rob me once or you can make this much money every couple weeks. That was what I said to him. So we came up with that, and I was doing that. So I met him in a rehab, and whenever I met him a good many times, he was actually staying clean, but he's selling me heroin. I met him at his NA meetings, and there are other people in NA meetings. There are some drug dealers that go there. I think AA is a better group. It's a lot of older white men, and just as a general whole, that's what a lot of AA meetings look like that I've seen state to state. But it's more serious people, and they've kind of got it figured out. A lot of them have substantial clean time. You see a lot more substantial clean time in my personal experience in AA rather than NA. And there are a set of principles to live by, and there's a lot of things you have to learn, and a lot of things that go wrong. It's what's called a family disease is what addiction is classified as, because it's not only the person using, but the people enabling it to happen, And circle back around to Kevin, what he was saying about enabling is not giving somebody money to get drugs. It's not even lighting the pipe. If they're smoking crack, light the pipe for them. If they're shooting heroin, shoot the needle for them. He said that's not enabling. What enabling is when they go to jail, do you bail them out? When they spent their check on drugs so they cannot make a car payment, do you make their car payment for them? He said enabling is preventing the naturally occurring consequences of one's actions from taking place. Putting a pillow under their butt so they don't smack it on the concrete. Now think about that. That makes a lot of sense. When you let people feel the full weight of the consequences of their actions, it's more likely to exceed that thing that I was talking about, where the negative passes the positive, or the bad times outweigh the good times. But if you learn every time I do this, mom, grandma, dad, whoever is going to bail me out. They're going to bail me out of jail. They're going to make my car payment. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And shoot, that wasn't too bad. Spent a whole check. Got high for the whole weekend. I'll probably do it again in a month. Forget a month. We'll do it again this weekend. You know, that's what happens. But when you let them hit the concrete, let them bust their butt fully with the full weight of it, it lets the consequences sink in. And when that can happen, that's when things can change. So there's a lot of factors to it. There's a lot of things that I've looked at. I've been putting this book together with Eric and Kelly for quite some time now. And I'm hoping that it can be something that helps people, because my mom said that there was no manual to deal with what to do when your son is selling and using drugs. So I'm trying to create a full plan with every possible thing, just overall that can really help a lot of people. You know, I really think if people knew how to address a lot of different things, like each situation, it could make life tremendously easier. It could stop so many things from happening. You wouldn't have to just learn from trial and error. And right now, where it's kept a secret, so many people learn from trial and error because there is no definitive answer. And for each person, there is no definitive path for how to get them clean with each person. It's case by case basis. But there are a lot of similarities. The story is so much the same with so many different people. And, with the best of my ability, I'm going to try to get that out there, and, hopefully a few people it clicks with, it makes sense with. And, when you look at it as a disease, you can treat it as a disease instead of just, well, they're a bad person. And, I think that's a big part of it, is looking at it from a different perspective, looking at it for what it really is, but just because the stigma and stereotype that it's treated in a different sort of way. So I'm going to try to do upcoming videos, not only on the prison stories, not only on martial arts, but also on addiction, communication, things that have helped make my life better. And some of the communication stuff can make your life better too. It's been a lot of counseling and a lot of classes that I've taken that have really helped me communicate with the people around me. And I can't remember the last time I was in an argument where we really raised our voice. My fiance, my mom, with anybody, if it gets to that point, it's time to shut down, step away for a little bit, have a little bit of empathy and think, what did I say that got them upset? How did they interpret that? What did I mean, but how did they take it when I said it? When you can figure out what you said that was taken the wrong way, you can come back and say, when I said whatever you said, I think that you took it as whatever you think they took it as. What I really meant was this. And when that got said, I escalated it by saying this, and you dissect it. You can dissect it, and by simple, just taking the time to break down a conversation, you can make your life so much easier. So, upcoming videos on more of that.